Go.
Hey guys, how's it? I was like, where's wait a minute. He goes, we're gonna do the
I'm the
countdown, and
countdown. I'm
you're
the
the
countdown.
countdown. Oh, okay. How's it going, guys? Second episode. We're trying. we're trying. Actually,
Still production stuff we're working on, but we're
we'll
getting
figure it
there.
out. We'll get
Yeah.
to that point. Right now, all I've got to say is welcome to the Talking Dirty Birds podcast. My name is Lieutenant Dan. This is Mr. Scott here with us today. And you know what's really funny is that every time we do one of these podcasts, however prepared or unprepared we truly are at the end of the day, it just always turns out to be fun.
Yeah.
That's like
the whole point.
99% of the time we're like, man, we just suck. And then turn around and are like, you know what? It wasn't so bad. It was actually kind of fun.
It was fun. We just talked about the Falcons for an hour or so. It's fun. That's the whole point.
On today's pod, we are discussing quarterbacks, running backs, and fullbacks for you guys, breaking down every single one of the dudes that are part of the Atlanta Falcons' current roster. Now, of course, this is going to change as we get into training camp. Of course, this is going to change as we make additions and subtractions throughout the open free agency period here, where teams will begin to cut some guys. Maybe the Falcons make some additions as we go. But before this season here, right now, to this very point, all the way until the first preseason game, this is the unknown time and the time that you need to study up on your guys and prepare yourself for what could be sleepers and dark horses making the roster, getting into that roster bubble. So, Scott, how are you doing, friend?
I'm doing good. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull up the group.
What is this? What is this amazing
roster.
Magic?
So, obviously, I like to color code things because I'm a visual person, the ADHD, all that good stuff. Blue is a guy as a free agent that we signed. Red is a guy that the Falcons drafted this year. And then orange is undrafted free agent, where purple is like they're on injured reserve. And then obviously there's Pro Football Focus color codes and all that good stuff on there too.
Cool. This is fantastic. Just because, just like you said, a visual aid to kind of see not only where kind of guys are already slated.
Yep.
Kind of depth chart wise, but also just kind of giving us individual talking points here to kind of get into the swing of it and see how we currently are. So, where do you want to start, Mr. Scott? I
think we start at quarterbacks. I think got to start at quarterbacks.
Oh boy, I need to smoke. Let me smoke first. Let's start with Taylor Heinicke.
Well, this is kind of what I was leading in with, just kind of like a base idea of who the guy is, what we think their chances are to make the roster. If they do make the roster, what do we think their role is really going to be this year?
Well, obviously, Desmond Ridder is going to be beaten by Taylor Heinicke, so I don't even know why he's at the top of this list. But in all seriousness, though, I think this is a really good look by Atlanta because I'm not going to go into the whole. We've killed that discussion 100,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
And it's time to kind of move on from that. But just to kind of break it a little bit here, Desmond Ridder being the starter in Atlanta, given the keys and opportunity here, bringing in a guy like Heinicke, however you say his name, but bringing him in who has kind of a similar skill set and I would say somebody who's familiar with this style of offense anyway. Gets to be the backup and kind of the security blanket, right? Like the guy that is going to end up potentially getting the start, say, if an injury happens or if things really do go south with Ridder. So what's your thought process on this little grouping here?
For me, I like that they committed to Ridder and then said, this is going to be our guy at least for this year. This is our best option at quarterback that we can go out and get or have on the roster this year. So we're going to give him a chance to prove himself. He's going to get all the QB1 snaps. He's going to be the starting quarterback. 100% he's making the roster. Like, he's the guy this year. And if he proves it and he takes it and he, kind of Russell Wilson's it, if you will, and says, okay, I got the starting nod. I'm not letting it go for a decade. That's a best case scenario for the Falcons.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to be, I guess the worst case scenario is that they end up getting stuck with him. I don't think actually the worst case scenario is that Desmond Ridder doesn't work. I think the worst case scenario is that, well, he's good enough to get us 10 to 11 wins in a season.
And that he doesn't improve. Exactly.
And yeah, you're going nowhere. And I could almost say, and give me the flame for this, but I could almost say it's similar to a Matt Ryan end of career situation where he's good enough not to move on from and take the risk on another quarterback in the draft. But in that same vein, he's not bad enough to be like, yeah, just get right out of here. Clearly, you're not the guy, because Desmond Ridder,
he's not going to Mariota it.
Yeah, exactly. You're not literally playing yourself off the team. And so when I look at Desmond Ridder and I look at the Heineke situation and Logan Woodside, for what it's worth, gets an opportunity to at least throw a couple balls and turn some heads for practice squad or, something to that nature if they want to do that. But there's a new ruling that 3 quarterbacks are allowed to be dressed. So it does not count against your game day roster.
It doesn't count against your game day roster, and it doesn't count against your 53-man roster.
So here's my question. Do you keep Logan the whole year?
I would keep Logan unless someone better. I don't know if you've ever watched Starship Troopers, but the job's yours until you die or I find someone better. Like I hate to say it that way.
Come on, you apes who want to live forever. Let's go.
Yeah, like the job's yours unless you die or I find someone better for it.
Yeah. I like that. I like that quote though for this because it's like, Arthur Smith's going to go in here, and we're about to talk about the running backs too. So this is kind of a perfect marriage of everything you want to talk about in a whole. And people are kind of getting a glimpse on what we'll potentially talk about next week. But you look at what Arthur Smith is going to do. He's going to run the heck out of the ball.
Easily.
But then you study the Shanahan stuff and you study what's going on in the league and what the trends are currently saying from 2022. And you go, well, maybe this will be a sneaky passing offense, especially if they can connect and not have overshots or, they looked to make big plays and Mariota would sabotage it by overthrowing. Not that he was purposely doing it, but it just, I'm sorry, Mariota was a very good quarterback. It handicapped you into running more with the quarterback. And I don't think that's going to be Desmond Ridder's game anyway. I don't think that's going to be Heineke's game. They're there to be captain check down. I know a lot of Falcons fans will probably not be very excited by that, but both quarterbacks have enough of an arm to make that Shanahan-esque big impact play happen because it's, they're going to run some of these plays.
So kind of going off of that, this is where I think Ridder is really going to shine is his best routes that he can throw. His absolute daggers that he throws are seam routes. And when you've got a guy like London, who's 6'5" and runs a great seam, and you've got a guy like Pitts, who's 6'6" and has a 4.4 running down the seam, and you've got Pitts against the safety, I mean, that's 6, and you only have to throw it 18, 20 yards downfield.
So can I say something real quick, and can I have you do something on the can you do something to the list itself?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you copy Kyle Pitts? Just copy him, right?
Okay.
And then I want you to put him as WR2.
I can just do this.
There you go. Big plays. Big plays.
He's gonna be the wide receiver too, anyway. So
Yeah, I'm not telling anyone that our next episode is going to be some absolute buffoonery and fire, but I am about to say that just as a quick kind of side note to what we're talking about with Desmond Ridder and the passing game that's going to be with the running backs. We're about to get into the running backs now, but I would not be surprised if the Falcons come time to pay Kyle Pitts that they end up giving him the wide receiver designation and tell him that he's WR2 with inline ability. But I'm just going to leave that there.
That means they're going to pay more, though. They would pay him more if they did that.
Absolutely, they would. But you're not going to pay Kyle Pitts that much money as a tight end. But we're not going to get to that right now.
Good point.
We'll leave that to next week. And also another thing about Desmond Ridder and Heineke, which I kind of want to point out as we get into the running backs, is that look at the host of guys that they have that all have pass catching potential. I mean, these are routes that Ridder and Taylor throw consistently in both offenses. I mean, there's only 4 games for Ridder, but go back to his time in Cincinnati. Slinging the ball to the running back, man. So Bijan Robinson, is he going to out-snap Algier as a running back, or do you think he'll be more of the Deebo Samuels?
I don't think he's Deebo Samuel. I think he's Christian McCaffrey in terms of snap usage. I think as a running back, he's, 45, 50% in the backfield of the tailback snaps in the backfield, or they're going to run a lot more shotgun this year. You got to realize. So they're going to have a lot of two running backs back there with Ridder, and one of them's going to be Algier or Patterson, and one of them's going to be Robinson. So you're going to have that ability to have 2 running backs on the field at any given time. And I think that's going to happen 10% of the plays. So you're really looking at 110% of snaps for the tailback position. Bijan's probably getting 50%. Algier's probably getting 40%. Patterson's probably getting 20%. Between the 3 guys, that's 110%. It sounds crazy, but when you have 2 tailbacks and 10% of your formations, and you're running a lot of 2 running back, pistol, a lot of 2 running back.
A lot of sidecar and pony
shotgun sets. Exactly.
Yeah, you're going to be playing a lot of pistol, I-4. You're going to be playing a lot of sidecar. So these types of offensive looks can still, in every shape and way, become an under the center look. A check down to, okay, we went into shotgun. Okay, I'm going to walk up to the line and then say this, and that we looked one way, and now we look compact based on this look, and it could still end up being a passing play. So I'm actually the opposite of you. I think that Algier is going to be the lead running back, and they're going to start feeding in Robinson. And by year's end, it'll be closer, but I think Robinson is the explosion guy, and Algier is like a workhorse guy. Like keep Robinson on a light load so that he can always be explosive, and allow like Patterson and Huntley, which I believe they keep Huntley. I think that Huntley does make this make this squad easily.
Before Williams went down, though, I don't know.
That's a good point. Do you think that Carlos Washington has any chance to make this squad? I mean, what is he just going after Huntley at this point?
I mean, it's Washington or Huntley. They're very similar backs.
I like both of them. They're both have
very
great
similar
ability. Like it just.
They're both guys with great vision that aren't the fastest, that'll run right through you. Like, when you watch them, they're the same guy. And that's not a knock on either guy. It's just stylistically, you have the do-it-all, Bijan Robinson and Cordero Patterson, and then you got your sledgehammers. Algier, Huntley, Washington. I mean, that's who you got.
What about Patterson being like here's a good exercise. Cordero Patterson gets cut. Falcons save close to $5 million, $4.6 million if I'm not mistaken. I don't like that, but let's just be in the exercise. Huntley makes the squad. Washington is the fourth.
There's really no reason for that. So financially, right? The Falcons have about $10 million in cap space right now for the year. Unless Patterson has some gruesome injury and they have to do an injury settlement, which he would never agree to, there's no reason to cut him because it's only going to, it might save $4 million, but at the same point, is it really worth having that $4 million, or is it better having a guy who can play wide receiver, play running back, line up at tight end, line up all over the formation as yet another option to have? He may not be getting the ball as much, but it's also going to keep him healthier, and then teams are going to forget about him when they're trying to guard Pitts and London and Robinson. And they're going to go, okay, all right, so they got Pitts, London, Robinson, Jonnu Smith, and Patterson on the field. Well, wait, Patterson's the fifth option in that case in a lot of situations. So that's when you start drawing plays up for him. Because defenses are going to go Pitts, London, Robinson, or Robinson, London, Pitts, or Robinson, Pitts, London, or however you want to order it in terms of who's most important that day. And you got Jonnu Smith and Cordero Patterson looking like the 4 and the 5. When in a lot of other teams, they're the 3 option on that play, the 2 option on that play. So with Patterson being that 1 option on that play, teams are going to put their worst coverage guy on him. When your worst coverage guy is guarding a guy like Cordero Patterson, creates a big play.
I agree with that. I would just say that the way that the NFL is moving now, there are 3 key points. 1, motion creates your running lanes and creates who the number 1 target is going to be on the field. There is no longer a designation specifically for that's wide receiver 1, that's wide receiver 2, that's wide receiver 3, in like option A, option B, option C. In today's game, it is evolving to a point that based on the motion that we create, that the dummy plays that we ran in the beginning of a game show us what a defense was willing to do to cover this style of play or that style of play. We're going to line up in something, motion, and then create a space based on matchup that we motioned into. So I think that Cordero Patterson, if he was a year or 2 younger, would be in the position that Bijan Robinson is currently in, where it's like he would be the running and or passing option. But now that you have a guy in Algier who is like a C+ pass catcher, but a B+ runner, and a Bijan and Cordero Patterson who are probably the lead runners, technically had Algier not broken out last year, this group will share. I think it will be much closer than we think. Number 2, the second point being, and I'll get out of the way, is like this league is set on running, but it's not specifically set, and no matter what team you look at, on like a team's identity only being this style of running or that style of running. So Algier and Patterson have their uses not only in the draw game, but also in the power game, which is something that this offensive line can create and can accomplish, because it's not just all about outside zone. But I'll leave the third point for when we cover tight ends and wide receivers, because I think that third point is very important to understand how they're going to distribute the ball between the guys on that side over there, the wide receivers and tight ends. But so you believe that Bijan is the lead back, Algier and Patterson are more of the feed it.
I sorted them more by how many snaps total I think they're going to get.
That's fine. Yeah, because then you
So,
pass catching snaps. Yeah, okay.
because Bijan's going to get a lot more pass catching snaps. If you're going straight up carries, Algiers getting half the carries.
Maybe even more.
Robbins, maybe more. Yeah.
Maybe
Robinson's
more.
getting 35 to 40% of the carries.
I believe that. Yeah.
And then Patterson's getting that 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
And I do think Patterson is going to get those carries more in those 2nd and 1. Let's do a toss play, see if we can break it big kind of situations. Or 2nd and 1, they're going to be expecting a toss play because we ran it last drive. Let's run it inside zone right up the gut with Patterson and see if he can break, 9 yards here on 2nd and 1. Don't even let the drive get the 3rd down. Just get that 1st down. Or, oh shoot, second and 3. Let's have Patterson and Robinson in the backfield with Ritter, and then motion one or both of them out of the backfield, and see how the defense adjusts to that. All right, let's drop back and figure out who we're going to.
Yeah, it's a well-formed group because Carlos Washington and Caleb Huntley are both guys that have sneaky speed and bowl you over and can take 14 plus carries in a row and work with that. And Patterson and Algier and Robinson are more a Swiss Army knife of guys that all have fantastic ability and the ability to catch even better than Huntley and Washington do. So that brings me to this is that, like you had mentioned before, had Avery Williams not gotten injured, would we be even talking about Caleb Huntley?
I think if Avery Williams doesn't get injured, Huntley gets a reprieve because of his injury last year, he can technically go on the PUP list. Even if he's practicing already. He can still go on the PUP list because he tore his Achilles.
Do you like Avery more than you like Huntley?
Yes.
Just personal. Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
And
I was always I was always the opposite.
Well, it has nothing to do with Avery's ability as a running back or a wide receiver. It has everything to do with his ability as a punt returner and the ability to keep the field in shorter fields.
So does that mean that Cordero now becomes the punt returner?
Oh, hell no. Cordero Patterson's as great as Cordero Patterson is as a kick returner. That's how bad he is as a punt returner. You only throw Cordero Patterson back there if you want a fair catch. In a key, scary situation in the game, you go, you know what, Cordero, you're fair catching this. And he'll go back there and be like, I will make sure I fair catch this thing. Like, he's an awful, and I don't mean to sound super harsh about one of the greatest return specialists of all time, but he's just a terrible punt returner. He's a fantastic kick returner and arguably the greatest kick returner of all time.
It's interesting to see the dynamics that this team has put together because you're looking at the QBs and going, okay, if this is serviceable and just makes the right throws, then it completely and utterly complements what we've done at running back.
Yep.
Completely and utterly complements, because if the running backs do their job and we just execute, it's going to be a very long day for defenses because we'll just dink and slash and dunk you up and down the field and then battering ram to your face every single, play because we have the ability to do it. We have guys that can break tackles.
Well, my favorite part about the running back group is Bijan Robinson, 210, Tyler Algier, 220, Cordero Patterson, 220, Caleb Huntley, 230. You try tackling that mass for all game, it's like having 4 guys the size of Derrick Henry that you try to take down.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the 4th quarter, you're soft, you're tired, you're exhausted,
gassed, and
you're just like, I don't want to tackle this dude. My shoulder's out of its socket. Like, I'm done. Like, it's just not fun anymore. I don't want to be on the field right now.
Yeah.
And then either you're going against the starting gas group or you're going against a backup linebacker because you injured one of the other linebackers with one of your batting rams.
Yeah. True. And then also, again, the dynamics. If the offensive line is doing their job, that means that the running backs are most likely having a good day, which creates, like you said, tired defenders. But then tired defenders end up not being able to cover space. And
Exactly.
not being able to cover space means that guys like Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith and Matt Collins and Scotty Miller, I'm not even bringing Drake London into this conversation. I'm going to leave him to the side. But just that group gets to become, eat up chunk yards and yak. But this also, again, leading it back to the running backs, allows you to be able to dink and dunk off of those guys because you can't keep the pace. You are gassed. And so, again, this team is just built so... I just want to step back and admire for a second how they've built this team. It's very Shanahan, but it's very power.
Oh yeah. It's I kind of like to call it like I've been tinkering with names to write an article about the scheme itself. And one thing I've kind of been coming up with is artistic smash mouth.
Artistic smash. I like that a lot. I really like that. You need to put a copyright on that.
There's no other way to describe it other than it's designed to open. Like it's absolutely designed to open different doors and designed to open every play they run is designed to open another play somewhere else and open another situation somewhere else. They run a counter play. All right. Well, next time they're looking for that counter, you call the PA counter. And you've got Pitts running a crosser 15 yards downfield, getting the ball. Well, now they've got to look for both the counter play, which is already a tough cover, and the crosser, which is even tougher, going to the opposite side of the field. It drives you absolutely crazy as a defender because you're like, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
It is an alluring, car crash. It's a train wreck, and you can't look away. Like, it's fun. I don't know any single podcast or lettered network. Okay, CBS, but everybody else has said that this is going to be fun to watch. PFF, straight quote, this will be fun to watch. The Athletic, straight quote, we can't wait to watch something fun out of the Atlanta Falcons. They're one of our favorite fun teams. And so you keep hearing it over and over and over, and you're like, you know what? Maybe just, why do we have to be so serious? Why can't we not just be like, this is going to be enjoyable to watch, because it's like, no, not everybody likes monster truck rallies, but there's plenty of people that buy tickets to monster truck rallies or NASCAR. You just want to see the crash happen.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen, is you're going to see a crash every Sunday.
But the thing is, you don't want to see the Falcons offense crash. You want to see how they're going to make the defenders crash into each other trying to cover the wrong guy.
Oh my goodness.
One of the best plays of all time was when Michael Vick ran through the Minnesota Vikings defense and those two defenders crashed into each other.
They've always been on the cusp, right? With Turner, or it was Work Done, or it was Freeman and Coleman, or the Falcons have always been on or Vic on the cusp of this, like Earl Earnhardt Jr. Senior Earnhardt Senior, the Intimidator.
Yeah,
that's literally what this offense has always been. Just right there.
And just a little bit ahead stylistically than I think the league has been, with a lot of different coaches outside of like Dirk Cutter, Mike Mularkey. But I'd say even some of the stuff Sark was doing wasn't really being done in the league at that time. That motion Ridley to the backfield and then have him go out for a wheel route. No one ever really did that.
Yeah.
That was a Sark thing. He did it a couple times, but different little wrinkles that get added from every coordinator.
You know who copied that though? Not too long after that, Shanahan, because it went exactly into what he was doing. And Shanahan continues to layer things over and over. Arthur Smith learned from that coaching tree, but also learned from the Smash Mouth football coaching tree as well. So, and I'm going to be making a video on this soon, but what they lack in pass attack, they make up in consistency in the run that opens up those seam routes and those passes. So it's very interesting to watch. Like just with Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator would go out and bump your car and beat up your engine and beat up your tires and take you for 105 laps around. By the time the race was done, he was taking the checker flag, sitting at the top, of the mountain, and you were in the pits, whether or not you got second, third, or fourth, looking at your car like, gosh, man, it's wrecked. What happened? Well, yeah, Dale went out there and caused a 20-car wreck, and then ended up, despite the restrictor plate, getting past you and taking the checkered. So that's what I look at when I see Arthur Smith. Is I'm like, this guy just wants to see his car's engine rev and smash through you, and then every once in a while, hit the nitrous a little bit and throw the ball down the middle of the field, and you're gassed. Like we made that point just a little while ago. You're gassed, so now you can't catch that.
Well, I was thinking more like Mad Max, even. Like, if you want, like, Mad Max is supposed to be an artistic film, but it's all about smashing through stuff. So
that's really good.
That's where the artistic really Smash Mouth came through. Like, it's Mad Max. It's twisted metal, but like, like,
it's dirty, it's gritty, we haven't even seen it in its fullest form, and we can already tell you right now that I can, and I'm going to be making this video soon, but just watch Algiers runs last year.
Oh yeah,
like, goodness, half of them looked like they were going to stop where they started, and then the offensive line just bowled people over, and there goes Algier. He busts through a guy, and there he goes, 15 yards, and it's like, oh, what? Excuse me?
Now, imagine that same play. Robinson knocks a guy over. After Algier softened these guys up for 8 or 9 carries, and then Robinson gets a couple carries, and he's bowling this guy over. He gets 35 yards. He's in the end zone.
Speaking on it specifically, too, is that Caleb Huntley was the guy that got 14 straight carries in that game for a touchdown, and every single one of those touches was like 8 yards, 7 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards, 8 yards.
Guy hitting the backfield, but still gained 2 yards.
2 yards, touchdown.
Yeah.
That's like, what? You can't be serious, right? But no, Arthur Smith is very serious. He's going to run you over.
He got very mad at Marcus Mariota for throwing an interception. And said, I am taking the ball out of your damn hands, and then handed the ball to Caleb Huntley. And then I think Algier had like 3 carries in there somewhere, but handed the ball to Caleb Huntley for the whole drive and was like, look at this rookie. Look at how he protects the ball. Like,
isn't that like the thing too? Like you go to the bench after that touchdown, and Arthur Smith literally comes up to you as Marcus Mariota and tells you, you see that? You see what I just did? You handed the ball off. And I made it work. You're nothing. You're literally nothing.
And that was in the Browns game. And at that point, I was already like, I'm done with Desmond Ridder. And that was like game 4 of the season. And they won that game. And I was like, I'm over it. I'm just over Desmond Ridder. Like, I'm not Ridder. I'm over Marcus Mariota. Like, it's time for Desmond Ridder. Like, I want to see Ridder on the field. I'm ready for Ridder to be in
Panthers
there.
Game. I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen Desmond Ridder by that second Panthers game. I mean, you have Heineke now, so you kind of have a safety net like we were talking about. But now we can finally go, okay, let's actually see what this is all about. It's a good stretch of 5 to 6 games where we really get to see what Desmond Ridder's all about. And if he looks good, no complaints here, because the running game, if he's looking good, that means the running game is good. It's working.
So pulling up last year's schedule.
Yeah,
because that's always going to be fun to look at. Pulling up last year's schedule, the Falcons, after the Carolina game on Thursday, they had Chicago. They were 4-6. They were 1 game out of the NFC South. They had Chicago, Washington, and Pittsburgh in those games. They had 3 very winnable games. They went 1-2. So instead of him having 4 games that he played, he would have had 7. But Chicago wasn't a very good team.
But that was in Chicago, right?
No, that was here in Atlanta. Have
And
your
the
first
next game
start
was
in Atlanta against a team that's not your division rival, that's not your most heated rival, that's not coming up and getting hype for that every single game against you. Chicago should have been where he started. Had Kyle Pitts healthy, had London healthy, had everybody ready to go. Looking back on it, I guarantee you Arthur Smith's like, I should have started him in that damn Chicago game.
I don't want to get into that though, because it's like, okay,
Had
shoulda,
the
coulda,
number
woulda.
32 ranked defense. Like, if there was a team for him to go against to start his career and really just kind of get a baseline, it would have been Chicago.
But the following 2 games after that are
Washington and Pittsburgh that they lost by 1 score.
so that's an interesting one, because the Pittsburgh game, I don't think you want Ritter playing that.
Why not?
Because that's a good defensive line.
But rookie quarterback versus rookie quarterback. You ran for 146 yards in that game. Your offense was working the way it was supposed to. And a big reason why you lost was because Marcus Mariota was not accurate on 3rd downs.
And I totally agree, because we're looking hindsight here and we're looking back on it. But at that stage, remember, you had said they were only 1 game out of first place in a really garbage division, honestly.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been anywhere close. But
and still a garbage division when it comes up this year too. I don't want to be mean spirited, but it's probably one of the worst divisions in the NFC. I mean, it's not good.
If the Falcons sweep the division, they have a very good shot at getting 13 wins.
Yeah.
That's how bad the division is.
I think Carolina and New Orleans are the biggest issues there. And looking at the running backs and the quarterbacks here, it's enough to give me confidence to say that regardless of where Desmond Ritter would have started, and I would have probably agreed with you that he could have started by that Bears game, but Desmond Ritter and Heineke, that's enough to get you through this year, to see whether or not you're good enough. And if you're not, worst case scenario, you're hunting after a quarterback in a draft that has decent quarterbacks. I mean, okay, that's fine. And you've built everything else up, right? Like, everything else here is fine. Patterson's probably not coming back next year. Or, well, no, he's got a 2-year deal, so he'll still be here technically, but it could be cut.
No, and his next year is voidable, actually. This is the second year of the 2-year deal.
So that's all up to them.
He's got 1.25. No, it's like already voided kind of thing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, cool. He plays 1 snap, it voids kind of thing. That's normally how those voidable years work. They're done for cap reasons. They needed it to get under the cap last year, but next year, like this year and next year, it doesn't really matter. If they did cut him, he's going to have a $1.25 million cap hit next year regardless. So it doesn't really matter.
So fullback, since we've kind of got to bring this into discussion at some point, right? I mean, we literally passed over them to talk about Avery Williams' injury here. So
yeah.
How many times do we see the fullback?
See, that's tough because last year, I think percentage-wise, if I had it on here somewhere, percentage-wise, the fullback was used. Hold on, let me pull up my.
While you're doing that, I just want to go into a little bit here, but like, Jonnu Smith can be that.
Yes, 100%.
So I'm a little confused because I see, no matter who you're looking at on this screen, I see guys that, despite some limitations, pretty much is a group of guys that are all rounded. Everybody's rounded out to some degree. Everybody can do a little bit of everything. That's what you kind of want in this kind of intimidator, a beautiful crash type of deal. Like, you want smash mouth, Mad Max finesse in this style of offense. And Jonnu Smith can do Keith Smith's job.
Easily.
And you know that Parker's probably going to end up playing some snaps too, because they're most likely going to keep 3 tight ends because they're going to want to have some heavy formations. Because Kyle Pitts, I don't think is going to be a major blocker unless they add a frick ton of weight to him, but then that takes away from his ability to catch. My point is that I don't know how much we really see a fullback like Keith Smith on the field if you have guys that can do this job.
So they used the fullback 25% of snaps last year. They used, so this is going to be some fun, interesting things to throw out here. They had 6 offensive linemen 1% of the time.
Right.
They had 2 tight end sets or 2 tight ends on the field 53% of the time.
Okay, so that's easily, easy locators there.
Wide receivers were on the field. 3 wide receivers were on the field 13% of the time. They had 2 tailbacks on the field 10% of the time.
Okay.
So when I say 110% snaps for the tailbacks, that's what I'm basing that off of is last year's usage. Now,
right.
I do think they are going to align with the fullback 25% of the time again. I do think that half of those snaps that are fullback snaps are going to be Jonnu Smith. Because Keith Smith was lining up as the second guy in shotgun sets.
Yeah. I like Keith and what he brings to this team. I just see that a guy like Keith Smith is, again, Keith Smith's an awesome guy. Love him on this team. Think he's really talented. But the days of a Keith Smith that is not a inline catcher is over. That's not
Absolutely.
the NFL anymore.
So here's where Keith Smith makes his bones. He makes his bones as a blocker, of course, and he makes his bones as a primarily special teamer. You're going to have a couple guys on your roster every year that are primary special teamers.
Primarily playing special teams in order to be able to. And they've got a pretty good special teams group, honestly, for what it's worth, which is it's something that Falcons fans are not talking about.
Keith Smith was one of those captains essentially on special teams. Kadarrell Hodge was a captain on special teams last year. Mike Hall was one of those captains on special, or not Hall, Mike Ford was one of those captains on special teams last year. Going down here, looking at the cornerbacks, someone's going to have to replace Mike Ford from this group or this group. And I honestly think Clifford Chapman, and we'll get to him eventually, but I think he might be a guy who stands out on special teams. But that's where Keith Smith makes his money, is special teams. That's where he's made his money the last decade, is special teams.
It'll be interesting because I don't think there's much of a battle in the fullback spot, but there will be different guys used there. I don't think there's much of a battle in the running back spot. I think it's predetermined. I think that Bijan Robinson is going to be used very heavily as a pass catcher. They're going to run him. I mean, that's not a question. It's just, I think the question is how much will they limit Algier after having 1,000-yard season and putting up some pretty decent numbers as a running back individually game per game basis. And literally outplaying Cordero Patterson, I think, to an extreme, if you want to go that route.
He did outplay him. And I think he gets a lot more.
He's going to be the goal line guy.
I think he gets a lot more, not snaps, but receiving snaps than people realize. Now, last year, Algier, he went out for 187 passing plays, right? He went out for 187 routes. which is hard to fathom when you think about it. But he'll probably see just as many as a check down. I think he gets targeted on more than 17 of them this year. I think he gets targeted on 40 of them.
Mm.
And I think working with Robinson's going to help him learn how to catch better. He's going to help Robinson learn how to play running back better in the NFL and adjust to the NFL better. And everybody's going to be better in overall.
It's a healthy group because you've got a lot of guys, like we said, that are very talented, all kind of have that same kind of build to them. I think the line starts at Caleb Huntley and goes down from there because everybody above that line has multi-purpose, regardless of how good or bad you think they are at individual skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And with Desmond Ridder as an outlet guy, just, a point guard. He's just there, distribute the ball and hit his shots when he has open shots. And I think that's going to be really, really good for him and good for this running back group. And next week, obviously, or whenever we get to wide receivers and tight ends, we'll do that. But I think just everybody's going to benefit from just having a stable, above average passing offense. Just good, not great, just good. And then I'll say it, we're going to have like the number 3 or number 2 rushing attack in the NFL. I think we're going to be that good.
So I don't think it's going to be the number 2 or number 3 rushing attack in the NFL. And the only reason why is the rushing attacks that were in the top 2 last year had a lot of quarterback runs. The Falcons had a lot of quarterback runs. The Giants had a lot of quarterback runs. I think this year they probably settle around 145 yards per game on the ground. But I do think there's going to be a similar level of attempts. I think you take away about 40 of those rushing attempts, though, that were scrambles, and you turn them into passes.
From Mariota.
So
I'll counter that by saying this real quick to you, Scott, that the league average on rushing attempts from a quarterback on a passing play has gone up 2.6% from the last year.
For sure. And it's something that's going to keep going up. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think that Ridder is going to be a 8 to 9 attempt guy every year. Like, how do I put this? Just looking at the basic math, Mariota had 85 rushing attempts in 13 games. When you do the math on that, that's something like 7 attempts a game.
And Ritter's probably more like a 3 or 4. Yeah. But I point to, I think this offense will most likely be a read your first 2 options and then follow a check down and take easy yards. Green light is go if you don't see your first 2 options light up type of thing. Because they're going to want to get this ball out fast because this is a below average pass blocking offensive line until proven otherwise. I'm not saying that I personally believe that, but statistically, this is an average to below average pass blocking line. They're ranked like something like 25th in pass blocking without counting Bergeron as an addition.
So that's where PFF actually disagrees. They're rated as the 8th best pass blocking line in the league. Yep.
Not the 8th best run blocking line in the league?
No. They're not the 8th best run blocking line in the league. They're the 1 best run blocking line in the league.
They're number 1 ranked in PFF. For the PFF, you guys, sometimes for me, just know how to push a button that I'm like, I don't know how you got that statistic.
I know how they got that statistic. Because when it came to pass blocking, the cause for a lot of the sacks was not the offensive line.
It was a quarterback holding onto the ball for too long.
It was the quarterback holding onto the ball for too long. So Mariota was sacked 28 times, right?
Right.
Ritter was sacked 9 times. That's 37 total sacks. They only credited the line with 19 pressures allowed.
Right. So they're saying that the bulk of it is the quarterback walking into sacks or
correct
keeping
holding
the ball
onto
for
the ball too long.
Yeah.
They credited Mariota with 18 of his own sacks.
Dude. Okay. If you're going to say it like that.
When Mariota can't read a defense, how is that on the offensive line?
True.
Even in true pass sets, they rated these guys really well. The worst rated guy in true pass sets was Elijah Wilkinson, the left guard. And then, of course, Matt Hennessy, Colby Gossett, whoever was playing left guard was the worst rated offensive lineman.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. And then probably after all of those pieces, most likely McGarry, right? That would be the next lowest on the list. Well, lowest. Not technically lowest, actually that the next highest over Wilkinson.
Honestly, McGarry, like if the left guard spot was the worst, the right tackle spot, McGarry was the second worst.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
We're talking a difference in score between a 55, which is around average-ish.
Yeah.
Still below average, but around average-ish, to a 62, which is league average.
Right.
So as a true pass blocker, he's league average. As a throw in play action in there, he's above league average at 67. And then as a run blocker, he's like a 97.
Yeah, and this is the other thing was I was like, and still talking about quarterbacks and running backs here because I don't want to get too much into the offensive line, but like, yeah, that particular stat tells you that maybe they do take away from Desmond Ridder and make it into a, run type deal 3 or 4 times a game. I don't think Desmond Ridder is going to eclipse more than 7 or 8 runs in a specific game designed. But I do believe that there will be, I want to say a strong 6 times a game where Desmond Ridder will most likely take off and get on the wheels and go because his options are not there. And I think Arthur Smith is most likely going to give him the green light is go if you don't see the options we're trying to hit on a passing play.
See, this is where I disagree because I think Ridder is more, I'm not going to run to run. I'm going to run to find time so I can hit a check down.
I saw that in a couple of times.
Jonnu, so I can hit Michael Pruitt for my first touchdown ever.
I saw that a couple of times, but I also saw times where Desmond Ridder couldn't find anything and tried to turn the corner or go down the field. So I know that is, it's not unlikely that that's the correct option, Scott. But I will say that it will come to case by case basis. I don't think it's actually a negative if he does either. I think it's more of a personal preference of what it comes down to. What you think is going to be the necessary thought process that Desmond Ridder is going to do. He's going to be a pass first guy. That's not debatable. What's debatable is, and through 4 games I saw, Desmond Ridder goes, you know what? Pockets collapsed. It's gone. Especially in the Bucs game. Pockets collapse. It's gone. I'm going to take the 4 yards. And on 3 attempts or 4 attempts it was, which is kind of funny because we said 3 to 4 attempts that he'll run in a game. Yep. I think it was about 3 to 4 attempts. He gained something like, 5-9 yards total. Yeah. So I don't think he's going to be a mega runner, but I think that they will key into, hey, Des, look, listen, throw, find the guy. That's what you're good at. But in that same vein, listen, pocket collapses. It's not a negative play or away from our script to take those 3 to 4 yards, because that's a positive for us. Because guess what? On 2nd and 7 or 3rd and 3, look at the list of running backs that you currently have here. Do not worry, Des. Just shorten the field for us, and it'll be fine. And if you find Kyle Pitts, still seaming down the field 15 yards, and you end up hitting him, cool. That's good too. That's positive.
Yeah. He had one pass to Michael Pruitt, where Pruitt just ran a basic seam route. Super basic seam route. Got by Levante David, and he hit him for 30 yards.
Yep. And the Bucks guy ended up on the floor, and Pruitt's just kind of standing there like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's Michael Pruitt, who's not on an NFL roster right now.
Yeah.
So this is where I see a lot of potential for Ritter to keep getting better. ESPN gave him a QBR of 49.8 last year, right? Not fantastic, not atrocious either, because it's a 0 to a 100 scale that they do, with 50 being the average.
Yeah. So he's just
as a rookie.
Yeah, as a rookie
in his first 4 games, without any really competent wide receivers except for Drake London. It got to a point where they were using Cordero Patterson out there.
And that's the funny thing too, is they have Cordero Patterson and Bijan Robinson running with the wide receivers, catching passes in the OTAs and the little mini camps. And here we are, about 2 weeks away from training camp, if I've got my dates right. And bro, they're going to run a lot of running back routes here.
And that's another reason why I say 2 to 4 runs a game for him really is what I see him getting. Because when you have a lot better options than you had last year, when you had Drake London, Cordero Patterson, Tyler Algier, and a bunch of schmucks. Now you got Bijan Robinson, Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller, Jonnu Smith in there as well, and you're getting Kyle Pitts. Like, you're getting all these guys that sound pretty solid, and then you're also getting Kyle Pitts. You're also getting the number 8 pick in the draft added to your weapons that you're already kind of comfortable with.
I wish JJ Arcega-Whiteside was not terrible. We'll get to that next week, but like, man, I wish he wasn't bad.
if this is kind of where I see the Falcons taking a page from the Braves.
Don't.
So hold on.
I like where you're going with this. I'm just like upset that you're bringing this up like this.
The Braves saw a great prospect in Orlando Arcia. They wanted to draft Arcia years ago. And then they traded for him. They got him for pennies on the dollar. And they let him sit for a couple of years and really develop. And then now he's an all-star shortstop.
Yep.
What if they can do the same thing here with Arcega-Whiteside?
I mean, I look at this whole list of guys, whether it be running back or quarterback or wide receiver or tight end, or bro, take it off the offense for a second and scroll down to the defense for just 1 second. Look at the entire list of guys that are on here and tell me for 1 second that this doesn't look like the Braves. This looks like the Braves.
From 2017.
They are literally starting this whole little bit where they brought in a bunch of free agents and they brought in a bunch of dudes that are super young from their talent pool. And they're going, we've got bats. We'll get the pitchers soon, but we've got bats. And I think this defense is starting to, it's not a great translation, but I think this defense is kind of the pitchers. This is the pitchers. And the pitchers start looking like they might have a couple curveballs here, man, and some splitters. And
Calais Campbell is Charlie Morton. Like, I'm getting the reference.
I mean, look at this group. It's not a group that anyone's extremely excited about, but guess what? The pitching's good.
The pitching's good.
They're going to find
they fit what the team wants them to do.
They're going to find their Spencer Strider. They're going to find their guy. Like, it'll take a second.
Strider. I'm telling you right now, Strider.
Okay. It could
Telling you
be.
right now.
It could be because man, I don't want to get onto this. This needs to be for like next week. But like
We can keep going, man. I'm good.
I need to do another project. So and I want to keep this to an hour. We just hit the hour, but I want to say this. This pass rushing group is going to produce some dudes that are going to create more pressures than sacks. And there's going to be a lot of interceptions from this group or a lot of dead duck balls. And this group is going to take advantage of this after what we said earlier. Scroll up. This group up here ends up absolutely beating the dog out of you, and you have no gas.
When your offense is fresh, but not on the same page.
Nope.
And because they've been resting on the sidelines all game, and your defense comes in fresh and wants to take it out on that offense because they've been bored on the sideline, watching your offense take 6 minutes off the clock and score a touchdown. And then, oh no, they get the ball right back to your offense at the 35. All right, well, we got another couple minutes of break. Like
6 to 8.5 minutes is what I think the specific clock is going to be for this Falcons offense when they take the field and drive. And
if these guys get turnovers,
this is a run stop group. Everyone in this entire group is made for pressures, not sacks, and to stop the run. If you take the run away from a team and force them into passing only, and then you take that group from above in the offense and you have them go on long drives that end in scores, it is the prototypical old school style of football that uses a new school style of passing to running backs and quick passes where they need to be and just being accurate.
See, and this is where I think Ritter actually sees closer to 500 attempts this year. Because you're going to include a lot of those screens to running backs instead of actual run plays.
Yep.
So maybe you don't have a single 1,000-yard rusher, but you have two 850-yard rushers and a 400-yard rusher.
Yeah.
That accomplishes way more than what a single 1,000-yard rusher would do anyway.
Anywhere from 600 to 800 yards. If you had three guys that put up 600 to 700 yards in a season and all had a few touchdowns apiece, and you go, oh, well, none of those guys are special, but then take that and put it as one running back, you'd be like, oh my goodness, they have Adrian Peterson. This is it. This is the NFL, guys. This is not just a Falcons thing. This is the NFL as a whole. You're not
giving one guy. It's like you're not giving one guy 2,000 yards and 400 carries. But if you give the three guys a combined 450 carries.
Yeah.
And, Bijan gets 170 of them, 175. And Algier gets 200, 225 of those. And then, the rest of them go to Cordero. I think he's going to get a 50-50 kind of year. 50 catches, 50 carries kind of year.
This is the group that's set up to put 2,000 all-purpose yards together.
Oh, more than that.
And 20-ish touchdowns.
Yeah.
Kind of group. That I'm trying to be bare minimum, but
oh yeah,
this is the kind of group that could be like, wow, look at them. They all put up 700 yards rushing and pass catching. They all put up 500 yards or some silliness, and they all put up 4 or 5 touchdowns apiece. This is a weird group, but if you put it all together, you're like, man,
I hate playing them. I hate scheming for them. I hate trying to tackle them.
Exactly.
They're all 215 pounds, elusive, and will also run over your ass.
They all love contact.
They love contact.
Wild.
They're
wild.
Tyler Algier runs like Michael Turner. Cordero Patterson runs like Jamal Anderson. They just want to run over you. Bijan Robinson runs more like a LaDainian Tomlinson, where he can run over you, or he can run around you, or he can run by you. So when you got those three kinds of style guys, they're all going to take hits and they're all going to deliver punishment themselves.
slower version of Jamal Charles? Final answer.
I see Clinton
It's
Portis.
not a bad thing. It's just like, wow, crazy.
I see Clinton Portis. Clinton Portis ran like a 4.48, 4.49.
Wow.
The way he runs,
That's
just
a
with
good
all
one.
the vision and the way he finds the gaps, I see a ton of Clinton Portis. And early in Clinton Portis's career, he caught a lot of balls too.
Yep.
But he didn't get used like a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So it's like a mix for me between Portis and like McCaffrey.
What a strange
He's
offense.
a new type of running back. People are going to be comparing guys to Bijan in the future.
Yeah. It's strange offense because it's emulating what the league is doing at a high level from a coaching tree that literally has broken the league multiple times now. And that offense, the mainstay of that offense, the main coaching part of that offense has now also changed itself to some extent. And now teams that have been emulating that tree or have knowledge of that tree are coming to those same conclusions and going, oh, we're the NFL trend now. And we just so happen to have fallen into that trend, but with our own flair.
Well, and then you've got the thing about Arthur Smith is he's throwing in that Mike Munchak style and that Mike Mularkey. If you look at the head coaches, right, the Tennessee Titans head coaches that he coached under, it was I'm pretty sure it was Munchak, Mularkey, and
I just saw it.
He had a year with Fisher, and then it was Munchak, Ken Wisenhunt, and then Mike Mularkey, and then he had Vrabel.
Yeah,
but Munchak, power run, Wisenhunt, power run, Mularkey, power run, bunch of power running guys, right?
Yeah.
Then you get LaFleur for a year with Vrabel, and says, "Hey, listen, I like your power run stuff, but we got all this Shanahan stuff that I'm going to implement. Completely different."
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Not a problem. Do it.
He fell in love with it.
And then he fell in love with it and was like, all right, so I'm going to do all of this that I learned in that year.
And all of this that I've been part of, and I have learned how like these offenses work and how offensive lines work and go.
Exactly. It's like med school.
Sandwich.
It's like med school, right? He did his med school and his residency with the Titans O-line schemes, the old school smash mouth power football.
Yeah.
Then he got a fellowship in Shanahan. Like he's got a fellowship in Shanahan style, and that's how he does everything now.
Yep. And it shows in his passing attack as well, which is something that most websites and podcasts and analysts say that is the biggest weak point of what the Falcons have, because of and again, we'll get to it next week, but just how the wide receiving room looks, and the Falcons and Arthur Smith, especially Terry Fontenot, have decided, you know what, you're right, that is a weak point, but we're not going to go out and try to be something that we're not. We're going to be what we are. So we're going to find running backs that can pass catch.
Yep.
That can make up for the lack of pass catching and receptions from our receiving group. And our receiving group will just be whoever we feel we want to motion to and get them in the right position to be able to succeed.
Yep.
But that's quarterbacks and running backs, guys, and fullbacks as well.
And kind of jumping into that real quick, Ratkovich, I don't think he makes the roster. I think he's kind of irrelevant.
Sorry, dude.
No offense. Dave Ragone, speaking of quarterbacks, Dave Ragone's taking over the quarterbacks. He's from that Andy Reid school.
Yeah.
Which has a lot of same Walshian pass concepts that the like Bill Walsh style pass concepts. But he also spent a year in 2015 in Washington. And if I'm not mistaken, that 2015 Washington staff, that 2015 Washington staff was a Gruden staff, like a Jay Gruden staff, but the offense coordinator, Sean McVay.
And this plays into what Desmond Ridder will eventually be able to do from a shotgun standpoint and a passing game standpoint, is that they will end up eventually finding a way to get these guys to spread out this field. So when they want to, they'll do it. And when they don't want to, it's the Arthur Smith show. And hey, man, listen, if he wants to run 14 times in a row in a game, he's going to do it. And he's going to make you pay for it because his guys know how to block and his guys know how to bowl people over, and his guys know how to continue to go forward, not backwards. Looking at you, Devontae Freeman, you east to west crazy maniac. Just
Calvin Ridley, you east to west crazy maniac.
Oh, man. When we were talking about Mad Max, I thought about the bad parts, and the bad parts were just everybody going east to west constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I don't think we're going to see that a lot in this offense because the way they coach it, it's like Shanahan style offenses do a lot of spread the field, spread them wide, and then go up the field once you get your hole, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is going to be more of a, you spread them wide, but you're spreading them wide with a forward momentum.
You're funneling the opposite way. It starts out like this, and then it goes whoop and opens. It completely opens up. So it's not like you're trying to spread everything out and then go down the middle of it. You're literally starting out condensed and making everybody condense. The defense is trying to condense because they know what you're going to do. You're going to run. But then you end up going, ta-da, this is what we have coming out of the box. And they're like, oh, no, we're not ready for that. Just run, cover, do what you can. And it's too late at that point because it's only a 2-read system, technically. There's going to be rollouts and motion that's going to single guys and isolate them in places. So it's cool. It's a cool offense.
You mentioned 2 reads. I think in the end it's really 3 because you got that pre-snap read. And I think once you get to a certain point with Ridder, and it might even be this season, he's going to start looking at the line, looking at the defense, going, all right, I've got that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. Mike's right here. All right, changing the play.
I think that's going to actually I agree with you, but I think that's actually going to be performed without having to do that. I think that what you're going to end up seeing is the Falcons will come out in a look, motion, and if what they're basically going to do is they're going to end up huddling. And then they're going to go into a play going, we have an idea of what this individual dude is going to do on the field. We are going to move someone on this line. And based on what that is, we'll make a decision. If we like what we see, we're just going to run the play. If we don't like what we see, we're going to make that motion happen. Audible, the motion will continue and the play will happen. And that's where we're going to end up seeing. I don't think it's going to be a traditional, and I think you're going to see that across the whole NFL. This is not a Ridder thing where more teams that motion will end up making the motion the audible. And it will create, like with Shanahan, oh, look, Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey both happen to be on the field. They run Deebo into motion. It pulls a linebacker into a space, and you see whether it be Trey Lance or it be Brock Purdy go, that was the key right there. He did the thing that we thought he was going to do. All right, guys, run the play as normal. Boom. They run up right at the middle where that guy was, and they end up taking it for yards. If it doesn't happen that way, they go, okay, second option. Deebo goes out. Instead of McCaffrey getting that run, he goes out for some pass. A hole is created. maybe that third read is part of that whole motion. And you go, the number one wide receiver changed from this on this read when the motion started to this guy is now the number one read. And we were going to read this because that guy motioned out of that spot. So now that he's opened it up, I'm not looking here anymore for the first option. I'm looking here where Debo went, because Debo now pulled the guy off of where he wanted to be.
And it could even be something as simple as you motion London into the slot.
Or Kyle Pitts or Bijan.
Well, Pitts might be in the slot a lot, but say you have London out wide on the right, you motion him across left slot. You see he's now covered by a linebacker. Tells you, one, their zone. Two, you might have a seam route.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that play just changed. Now you've got London in that seam.
And you never had to say a word. You never had to really do anything, because when you pre-snapped, you huddled, which we were one of the highest huddle teams in the league, and you huddle there and you go, this is how we are going to run this play, and it all comes off of whether or not this guy moves. If they change that movement, we'll stop and we'll reform a play. But if one of two things happens with that guy, we know we can run play A or play B, and everybody will know. Got it?
Yep.
Got it. Set, motion, up. The guy did the thing that's going to happen for play 2. So we run play 2. A hand signal is called. Boom, boom. It happens. And that's.
And you may even have dummy hand signals to be like, listen, we got this. Yeah, we got this.
Yep. That's
like,
the signal for first play. The signal for first play or the signal for second play can be a dummy or a, we're going with this now. And ends up making a defense go, we can't read them.
Yep.
We can't read them because they decided to do like 2 or 1 brands of motion, and then suddenly they just kind of keep, there's no specific one guy that's taking us this game. It's like a multitude of guys where they attack a weird space, and it's because we weren't ready for that.
I think Arthur Smith plays a lot of chess, because when he says, hey, I've got 7 pieces that I can use to protect my king. Or one guy's like, I've got 7 pieces that I know how to use to protect my king. Arthur's like, no, I've got 15. Like, I've got all these pawns. I've got everything.
I'll go one further and say this, Scott, that I think that actually Arthur Smith is a grandmaster at chess who's decided that he's tired with chess. So he's going to go back home to his family and friends and play checkers. And just dominate there because checkers is more fun.
Right. Exactly. He could be running FedEx right now, but instead he's like, I feel like coaching football.
Yeah.
And he's just really good at it.
I could be a CEO here of Microsoft, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to go work for Verizon and sell some phones because, I'm fine with that.
like screw it. I'm gonna go coach football because that's what I like.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what he set up this quarterback and running back room to accomplish. And despite the Avery Williams injury, which we hope he recovers and gets well as soon as he possibly can, this offense predicated on running has a group here that not only from the quarterback standpoint, but also the running back standpoint, that is very capable of keeping this team afloat for 17 plus games. And I expect them for the beginning of the year to kind of maybe try out some of these things and then go from there. So, Scott, this was awesome. This was fantastic to talk about, and we got a good pod in there. Final notes, any thoughts before we get out of here?
Only other thing is, maybe next time, because I feel like we could have gotten through the quarterbacks and running backs a little quicker if we wanted to, but I feel like next time, maybe we do wide receivers, tight ends, and just do a quick rundown of the line, just because the line is, no one loves to talk about offensive line, but when you're basically bringing back all the same guys, there's not much to talk about.
Yeah, I will say this on top of that, and then we will go ahead and get on out of here for all of you folks. But I think this offensive line will surprise people in such ways. And it is it is the door. It is not a key. It is the door, and it decides when it wants to open. There are no handles. There are no locks. It just is a door. And the door will decide to open or close if it wants to. That's how special this is. Who enters and who leaves that door is up to the door's thoughts.
Yep.
So if Bergeron does well, and we'll get to that next week, but this line is too good. This line is too good. And I would not be surprised if they ended up making people freak out and they just added more to this offensive line in the near future. But guys, thank you so much for listening to Talking Dirty Birds podcast. My name's Lieutenant Dan. This is Mr. Scott. We are, well, actually, it's kind of there's Scott. Lord help me. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much. Make sure you follow us at Talking DB Pod on Twitter, and all the social media platforms that we're getting set very, very soon. Down here, guys. Down. Peace, hair grease, rise up, stay grounded, and we'll see you again real soon.